Welcome to Quantumly Kinky with Dr. Veda, where we talk about sex, Eastern medicine, and character development for the multidimensional you. Episode 38, Recalibrating Arousal, restoring vital energy in your relationship with self, partner, and porn. Welcome back to Quantumly Kinky. I am your host, Dr. Veda, and you've stepped into your weekly space where modern sexuality meets ancient medicine. And every episode helps you rewire your body for pleasure, power, and presence. And of course, more turn on. Today we're getting into something a little more provocative. Necessary though, and often misunderstood. Porn. Not to judge it, not to glorify it, but to recalibrate our relationship with it as an individual and as a couple. Because porn isn't the problem, disconnection is. And just like most things in life, porn isn't black or white. It's frequency, it's energy, it's intention. This episode, it was inspired by a listener who wanted to understand how to navigate porn in her marriage. And not from a place of judgment or shame, but from curiosity and connection. Because porn, like any form of stimulation, can either numb or awaken, distort or refine, all depending on the consciousness that we bring to it. It's not the act itself that determines the vibration. It's the awareness pulsing behind it. In my work with clients and couples, everything comes back to sexual vitality. How to cultivate harmony between two bodies, two nervous systems, and two sets of desires. And what I've seen is that porn can be a catalyst or a disruptor in that dance, all depending on whether it's used to escape sensation or deepen it. So in today's episode, we'll explore how to approach arousal as medicine, how to anchor erotic energy in awareness, and how to bring the body, not shame, back into the conversation. Let's decode the signal beneath the surface. And remember, the question today isn't whether porn is good or bad. It's who you are while engaging with it. So first, let's get into porn from the Eastern medicine lens. In Eastern medicine, sexual energy is your Jing, your essence. It's like the deep battery of your being. The substance that creates all marrow, hormones, vitality, and yes, desire. Every orgasm, every fantasy, every click has an energetic cost or a return. So when you release Jing unconsciously, whether that's through overuse of porn, quick dopamine loops on social media, or habitual ejaculation, you're actually leaking your essence, your vitality. And when you do that, your Shen, or your spirit, it begins to dull. Your focus fades, and the heart feels less open. But when you circulate that same energy with awareness, through breath, through presence, through touch, you're actually able to transmute Jing to Qi, and then that Qi goes back to your Shen or your spirit. And that's exactly how vitality rises and enlightenment expands rather than constricts. So in Eastern medicine, it's never about repression. It's about recirculation. You don't want to stop the current because that's stagnation and that's disease of the mind and body. But you want to stop letting your Jing drain into the void because that depletes you and your sexual vitality and longevity. So the first thing to ask yourself when it comes to porn participation is, am I connecting to myself or am I escaping myself? Let's go deeper into the multi-dimensional lens, beyond the body and into the energetic architecture of desire. First, let's take a deep breath together. Every erotic image, every fantasy, every spark of arousal is a frequency signal. And frequency signals program reality. When you watch porn, you're not just consuming imagery. You are actually entering a frequency field created by someone else's intention and emotional tone. So if the performers were disconnected or performing from pain, that's the frequency you sync to. If the production carries greed or manipulation, your nervous system absorbs that frequency too. This isn't about moralism. It's simply the physics of resonance. Because your body is a transmitter, and your arousal, that's the broadcast. So listen in, babe, this is important. When your turn on is directed towards something misaligned with your integrity, you start transmitting distortion, which is then experienced later as shame or numbness or a creative block. But the good news, you can reclaim your erotic sovereignty through conscious engagement. And this is exactly where porn stops being the puppet master of your pleasure. And it becomes the mirror, reflecting your current energetic programming. Every image that turns you on, every scene that pulls you in, it's data. It's showing you what's alive in your field, or what's repressed, what's longing to be met. Porn, when used consciously, becomes diagnostic, not destructive, because it reveals the archetypes that you're in relationship with. The devotee, the dominant, the innocent, the shadow, the unseen. Each flicker of desire or aversion is a message from your unconscious about where energy is trying to move through you. So when you bring awareness to what's happening in your body while you watch, your breath, the tension, the pulse, the contraction. You're reclaiming authorship over your erotic circuitry. And this is a big deal because you are the master of your domain. And when you are, you're not easily manipulated into shame. You begin to see where pleasure becomes performance, where fantasy becomes fixation, and where authentic Eros wants to return home to the body. So in this light, porn becomes a mirror, not a master. A reflection of your relationship to power, to surrender, to control, and creativity. It can become an initiation into deeper truth for you. Erotic sovereignty doesn't mean abstaining. It means choosing. It means no longer outsourcing your arousal to an algorithm. It's knowing that every desire is sacred data, waiting to be decoded through breath, presence, and feeling. So I want you to ask yourself these 3 questions, especially before engaging with porn, whether that's solo or partnered. What patterns keep replaying in my erotic life? The one that feels familiar but unfulfilled. Number 2, what archetype, wound, or unmet need might this fantasy be trying to reveal or heal? And number 3, where is my own unexpressed energy asking to be integrated in my body, my voice, my boundaries, or my pleasure? Because your fantasy, babe, it's rarely about sex. It's about multidimensional integration. And from this multidimensional view, your erotic attention opens portals. Where attention goes, energy flows. So if your attention is unconscious, you reinforce separation. But if your intention is infused with breath and love, you uplift the frequency, you expand self, you become more of who you truly are as a multidimensional being. And this is the Veda method quantum mirror effect. Arousal is data, orgasm is transmission, and you are the algorithm. And in this case, porn is the mirror. So now let's get into the practice, recalibration rituals. I've created 4 rituals before you engage with any erotic content, and honestly, this is a good practice for engaging with any polarizing content you're viewing, whether it's porn, politics, or even the stock market. So step 1, pause before play. Ask, am I connecting or am I escaping? If it's escape, breathe first, then again. Connect to yourself before the escape. Then it's not an escape. And step 2, conscious arousal. While engaging, use the microcosmic orbit breath. You draw energy up the spine on the inhale and down the front of the body on the exhale. Circulate, don't just discharge. Step 3, energy aftercare. When finished, rest your palms over the lower dantian. This is just below your navel, and breathe into your kidneys. Your kidneys are the source of your Jing, and I want you to visualize a pearl of light sealing your essence. In step 4, the couples practice. If exploring together, try watching in silence. Turn off the sound. Sync your breath. Touch each other, not to imitate, but to feel your own resonance. Afterwards, share what emotions surfaced. Let porn become practice, not performance. And speaking of couples, this is where things get tender. Because when porn meets partnership, it often ignites polarity. One partner watches, the other feels unseen. One's curious, the other feels threatened. Suddenly, what could be about energy becomes a fight about morality. But porn isn't the issue. Polarity is because of the clash. 2 nervous systems, 2 histories, 2 erotic archetypes. That's a lot of data trying to dance. If you don't communicate, the space between fills with projection. And remember, the goal isn't agreement, it's safety. Safety to reveal, to ask, to stay curious with each other. For couples, porn can be both a mirror and a messenger. It reflects the hidden longings that live beneath the surface. The parts of our multidimensional being that crave intensity, novelty, surrender, power. And when those images or fantasies are met with curiosity instead of criticism, they can open pathways for deeper communication and intimacy. The real medicine isn't in what's watched, it's in what's discussed afterward. When partners can talk about their desires openly, without shame or defensiveness, the relationship begins to breathe again. Sexual energy, like Qi and Jing, stagnate when they aren't expressed, and stagnation leads to disconnection and shame. But speaking your truth with one another allows this energy to circulate, creating harmony between 2 bodies, 2 nervous systems, and 2 spirits learning how to dance. Fantasies are like diagnostic data. In my clinical work with couples, I often remind them, fantasy is not a threat, it's information. It can show you where vitality wants to return. From an Eastern medicine lens, fantasy represents a movement of qi, of energy, attempting to restore balance through sensation and imagery. When desire arises, it signals that certain meridian or organ system, whether they're stagnant, deficient, or overactive. So in this way, fantasy becomes a form of diagnostic data rather than just something to judge or suppress. For example, a reoccurring fantasy about power or control often correlates with liver qi stagnation or an imbalance between the liver and heart systems in Eastern medicine. And this is because assertive energy has been constrained or emotional expression has been repressed. Here's another example. Fantasies that center on being desired, seen, or adored, they can sometimes indicate heart yin or heart blood deficiency, showing a deeper need for nourishment, for connection and validation. Meanwhile, fantasies involving risk, dominance, or intensity, they might reflect kidney yang deficiency, a system that's trying to rekindle its internal fire and restore a sense of potency. So, in the Veda method, we don't pathologize fantasy. We interpret it. We track the physiological responses, changes in breath, pulse rate, muscle tone, temperature, all as feedback about how energy is circulating through the body. Fantasy becomes a map of how your sexual vitality wants to move, where it's blocked, and what the body is asking for in terms of regulation or release. When couples explore fantasy together with curiosity rather than fear, they create a safe container for qi flow restoration. It allows each partner to understand not only psychological desires, but also the underlying energetic imbalances influencing them. And this shifts the focus from morality to medicine, from what's wrong with this fantasy to what is my body trying to communicate through this fantasy. And that's the foundation of erotic vitality. Learning to read the signals of your own energy system and respond with presence instead of judgment. And while watching your fantasies through porn can spark those conversations, what's acted upon should always be guided by one principle: mutual resonance between the couplehood. Not negotiation, not pressure, but two full body fuck yeses. Anything less than that fragments your energetic field. And anything born from true alignment from all parties involved, that amplifies magnetic turn-on. So let your conversations together about fantasies be foreplay for the soul, a space where honesty is arousing, vulnerability is sexy, and every desire spoken aloud becomes a chance to know and love each other more completely. When you approach it consciously, any erotic media becomes a mirror for your relationship, showing you both where intimacy flows and where fear constricts. Sometimes that conversation expands even further. Like, could we watch it together? Could we make our own erotic art? Could we open our relationship field? If anchored in trust, openness is liberating. Because the moment that you release control, you release shame. You begin to see your partner's desire as data, not danger. A doorway into parts of them that you've never met. And Eastern medicine reminds us yin and yang thrive through movement. Too much rigidity in the relationship, stagnation. Too much chaos in the relationship, collapse. The mastery is dynamic balance. Flow without losing center. So if one of you wants to explore porn, fantasy, or even openness, treat it as a polarity practice. Anchor it in honesty, heart coherence, and breathe together. Ask, what are we each seeking? Connection, novelty, affirmation, freedom? Then find the ways to meet those needs within and between you. When done consciously, porn and openness become portals to deeper intimacy, emotional transparency, and energetic expansion. When done reactively, they will always become walls between the two of you. Your relationship is not tested by how perfectly you agree, but by how safely you can disagree and still stay turned toward each other. And now we have the integration. First, let's take a deep breath. Porn and fantasies aren't inherently dark. They become dark when we abandon ourselves inside of them. Just like in last week's episode where we explored how rejecting our own darkness is a form of spiritual amputation, this is another version of that same exile. When we disconnect from the part of ourselves that seeks intensity, stimulation, or release, we hand our power over to the very shadows we fear. It's not the darkness that corrupts us. It's the disconnection from the light within the dark, because they always coexist. And darkness is simply unintegrated light. It's raw, undirected, primal energy waiting for awareness to arrive. When we approach it with shame, we distort it. When we approach it with curiosity, we activate it. The difference between corruption and creation is our consciousness, our perspective, our choices. Most people fear darkness because they've only ever met it through the lens of their own disembodiment. They felt lost in it, overtaken by it, consumed by its pull, not realizing that it wasn't the dark that devoured them, but their absence of presence within it. Darkness without consciousness causes energy to express as compulsion or chaos. Darkness with consciousness causes energy to circulate, integrate, and create. And consciousness here means our capacity to stay embodied, aware, and self-regulating in the presence of instinctual or shadow energy. Consciousness means turning what would normally drain us into fuel for creativity, healing, and purpose. This is the alchemy of Eros. When we meet the shadow with breath and awareness, it softens. When we bring love into lust, the current organizes. When we stay in our bodies through desire, fantasies, and porn, the dark reveals its hidden luminosity. And that's exactly when fantasy, kink, and porn, or any intense stimulation, becomes a mirror instead of a trap. It stops being a way to escape life and starts becoming a way to feel life. That's big. Let me say that again. When we stay in our bodies consciously, that's when porn, fantasy, kink, or any intense stimulation becomes a mirror instead of a trap. No longer a way to escape our life, but rather a way to feel our life deeper. And we start to sense that darkness is not the opposite of light, it's the womb of it. In Taoist alchemy, sexual energy is not something to control or repress. It's something to refine. When we circulate Jing through the orbit of awareness, our lust becomes illuminated. Because you don't transcend desire, you elevate it. You bring the shadow of consumption into the light of consciousness, and it transforms from a drain to a source. When you meet arousal with breath instead of resistance, you're not watching porn anymore. You're watching yourself awaken. You're witnessing energy move through form, learning to hold polarity without losing your center. The point isn't to escape pleasure. It's to become the master of it. And my invitation isn't about abstinence, it's alchemy. It's not about never looking. It's about never leaving yourself while you do. Because the real question isn't what you're consuming, it's who you are while you consume it. And when Eros becomes a mirror for consciousness, rather than just a cage for craving, even the darkest fantasies can become initiations into light. So this week, don't run from your arousal. Watch it, feel it, let it show you where your soul still wants to live. When you touch yourself or something touches you, ask what that current is trying to teach. Desire is not the problem. Forgetting your consciousness inside it is. And babe, you don't need to reject porn to evolve. You just need to stay awake inside of your pleasure and your fantasies. The moment that you breathe, feel, and remember your body, you turn consumption into communion. Because you are the frequency. Your breath is the transmitter. And the highest porn there is the one where your spirit never leaves the room. So let this week be an erotic experiment in consciousness. Make love with your attention. Let your orgasm become a prayer. Let pleasure refine you into presence. And when your arousal arises, can you stay with it without reaching for unconscious stimulation, without shame, without leaving your body? And for the couples out there, how can you bring consciousness into your shared erotic space? Even when exploring fantasy, porn, or kink together, can you treat each other's arousal as a sacred mirror rather than a threat or comparison? Because this is the heart of Taoist practice and my work with couples and clients. To help you circulate the raw current of desire through awareness. To turn lust into luminosity. To let the lower cauldron feed the upper. Stay in your body, stay with your breath, stay in your love. Because the world does not need more people avoiding their darkness. It needs more lovers willing to illuminate it from within. Thanks for listening to today's episode of Quantumly Kinky with Dr. Veda. Until next time, stay turned on